The 60th year of the Kinks, a celebration of 60 years of kingdom. Kingdom. Oh, love the Kinks, love the band. This is the second in a series of videos, this 60th anniversary series, and this is a video on the RCA years, or what many people call the theatrical years. I think they're the misunderstood years of the Kinks, and I want to go through these records, and I'm celebrating this kingdom. That's a hard mouthful to spit out, of this wonderful band from London, the Kinks, Muswell Hill, and the like. And I did show in the last video this new from BMG, The Journey Part 1. This is the first of a two double record sets, the Kinks. I get more into this one in the last video, so there's a link below it, but it literally just happened. I also, and I'll put a link below, a couple years ago, I did do my own Kinks ranking, the best Kinks album, my favorite Kinks album. I don't include everything, but my favorite. I'm all in on the Kinks, and all their records have something interesting. I don't like everything, but when you have a band, you kind of deep dive in. And so I want to talk about this period of the Kinks, because most of it, these records came out when I worked in record stores. I was a young lad from 19 years old, and these albums came out. So I really took deep dives into this. And to some people, they consider some of these records problematic. And this double comp, the first one so far, has 4 songs from this period. 1973 and 75, their songs, and I'll get into it when I show the rest of the record. But by the way, this double record set mastered by Kevin Gray. Now, having said that, he also did the mono box that came out some years ago that Andrew Sandoval, the curator, used to do a lot of work for Rhino, and a big expert on this music, curated, which is fabulous. And this is, again, the first of 2 parts, 2 double LPs that are coming out this year. And I love that the Kinks have been putting out these expanded sets for people like me. Not everything I adore by them. And it looks like some of their labels, with all the consolidation of major labels, of, they've somewhat been consolidated, and I can't keep up, but it doesn't matter. But Kevin Gray cut. Now, all the Kinks records aren't really great recorded in the early days. Shal Tamley, who produced them, great producer, but just great rock and roll producer. But they didn't have the luxury of the studios like an Abbey Road or some of the better studios at the time, but still it's great music, and that's what it's about ultimately, right? So the Kinks actually go out, leave Reprise Records in the States with a bang. Their last single, or at least the last album, Lola and the Money-Go-Round, Lola was a huge hit. Ape Man from that album was a somewhat of a FM radio staple. And of course, right before that was Arthur, Village Green Preservation Society. So from 68, 69, 70, the Kinks were really, especially Ray Davis, and it is Davis. Every time, that's how he pronounces it, Ray Davis, even though it sounds like it should be Davies. It's not. So go argue with someone else, okay? Ray Davis really was entrenched with as I said in the other video, the suburban, the local, growing up in Muswell Hill, and just the quiet suburban life. And he really went on a journey, writing about this over and over again. Of course, especially into the 70s, when everyone wanted their anthem rock and roll heavy guitar players and everything, and Ray was doing this theatrical, pre-Andrew Lloyd Webber stuff. Well, actually, not pre, because 1970 was Jesus Christ Superstar. But it didn't sound like that, any of the Kinks stuff. But their first foray, when they got signed from RCA, to me is one of my favorite records. And it was kind of an unusual record. After doing Lola and that sound, they did this song, this album. This is the Kinks, Muswell Hillbillies. Literally, the pub, somewhat in their backyard, taken in the pub there. Muswell Hill, fantastic record. It brings in a little bit of there's horns. It brings in the New Orleans and the country sound, which is really surprising. It was a whole different direction of what was happening. This record came out in 1971, and it's just a wonderful record. Amazing songs. 20th Century Man, Acute Schizophrenia, Paranoia Blues, Alcohol, Skin and Bones, and again, Have a Cup of Tea. They always had that kind of twee type of, a la. It's funny how McCartney and Ray Davis did a lot of this retro type of stuff, almost a vaudevillian type of pop music and rock and roll in his own style. I love this album, and around this time, a little after this, is when I really started seeing the Kinks live. I didn't see them in the early days, but I saw them, 5 times in the 70s. In the midst of this period, and even though some people aren't a fan of those theatrical records, they were still doing some amazing live shows. With those, sometimes they present the whole theatrics, and of course they would mix in their hits, and of course Ray Davis always liked to, tease with the riffs of your real da 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 da, and then it'd go into something completely different. What a card, what a wanker, Ray. Love you, baby, but you would tease the audience. Deo, if you listen to the live stuff, you know what I'm talking about. At the end of this video, I'm going to include some photographs that I took at Winterland. One of the times I saw the Kinks, I went both nights, and Dan Hicks was the opening act, or the middle act. Dan Hicks and his Hot Licks. It was their farewell performance. And Marianne Price, who was a member of Dan Hicks, actually went on to tour with the Kinks and sang on a subsequent album, Preservation Act 2. I'm kind of jumping ahead of myself, but I love talking about the Kinks. Muswell Hillbilly Boy, Oklahoma, USA. Great record. Just to show something, several years ago, when they were part of Legacy, putting reissues out. Now, I don't even know if it's all BMG now. I'm sorry, someone from the label can let me know. This is a cool record. This was a 3-record set, an expanded edition celebrating the wonderful album Muswell Hill. And it has a 3rd record that has alternate songs. It has a couple of pieces from live BBC The Peel sessions, live versions of it, and a couple of alternate versions, instrumental versions of the Kinks. So, of course, if you're all into the Kinks, this 3-record set is just, actually, it's a 2-record set, isn't it? But it has extra tracks, extra bonus tracks. RCA, obviously, the next year, Everybody's In Showbiz comes out, and I like the live album on this, and it has a lot of the songs from Muswell Hill on here, and it has that horn. They bring out a horn section with them. This is a great version of the Kinks live. What's really nice on here, aside from the tracks from Muswell Hillbilly, they have some original songs. One is one of the greatest sort of epic songs that Ray ever wrote in Celluloid Heroes. 6 minutes and 20 seconds, literally walking down Hollywood Boulevard. And again, fantastic record. And at the same, in the same extension, anniversary edition, this came out. This was the 3-record set expanded with a 6-sided, 5 and 6-sided, that has a extra live cuts from, this is from the Carnegie Hall shows, and a couple of studio different mixes and outtakes, but mostly additional live from that show. Fantastic. And I love this record. These are the most misunderstood records in the Kinks' career. And every time I've showed these, I have people say, oh, I hated those records. I bought them. I don't like them. But there are some amazing gems, and some of Ray's best songwriting. Again, this whole thing about going back to Preservation Act and Village Green harks back to 1968 with their possibly their best album ever, Village Green Preservation Society. Obviously into Arthur, about the British Empire, Queen Victoria, and was a theatrical piece for the BBC also. And Ray, a lot of these things were written with the hopes of doing a theatrical piece. But they would perform these in some cases in the 70s, the entire production. But this is the first Kinks album that came out while I was working in record stores. Came out, November 1973. And I fell in love with this record right away. It opens up with this beautiful piece of music. Every time I used to do these radio shows in college radio and then radio montages, a lot of times I'd open up with Morning Song by the Chorus. And it's one of those pieces of almost instrumental music with the humming and the chorus of, as if it reminds me of those Disney animated things where all the little creatures come out of the forest, the butterflies, and the little little deer and the critters, and they're just hiding and coming out and floating around Cinderella's or Snow White's hair. That beautiful thing. That's what Morning Song opens up like. But I tell you, the songs on here that are amongst Ray Davis's classic songs are Sweet Lady Guinevere. Is such a beautiful song. Great pop. It's a masterpiece, as good as anything Paul McCartney's ever written, and I'm not joking about that. And the recording is really wonderful. And Ray Davis really, was producing his own records. What a great producer he was. Another song on here is Sitting in the Midday Sun, which is on that new comp that just came out from BMG, and that's a lovely, lovely song. Again, they get into the whole idea of this character, Flash, really trying to screw up what was happening in this idyllic English suburban town in a way. And the story is convoluted, but there's beautiful songwriting. One of the survivors in here, Johnny Thunder and the Chorus, which again, there's some retro, almost like 50s rock and roll in these two records. In fact, some of these theatrical records, he harks back to the beginning of rock and roll. Rock and roll is a true theme in the 70s of Ray Davis writing about rock and roll that goes into even beyond the RCA years, into the Arista years with Misfits and rock and roll fantasy. It's great stuff, and he knows how to do it. And the Kinks at this point are Ray Davis, Dave Davis, Mick Avery, John Gosling, John Dalton, and then there's the other, I guess the horn players of Alan Holmes, Laurie Brown, John Beecham. Well, Laurie's singer on this. And of course, in 1974, the following year, they do the continuation, the follow-up, in a double album. So you got 3 LPs of this Preservation Act. Could it have been edited down to a 1-2 LP set? Possibly. I still like all the music. I tend to like this one better. Some people like this one better. But again, there's some amazing, amazing songs on here. Very theatrical in their kind of 50s gangster outfits, almost like, what the Cray Twins of. This is actually more 50s than 60s. But again, a nice follow-up and a companion piece to Preservation Act 1, so Preservation Act 2, the second part. Confused and puzzled a lot of people, but I love the theatrical part of Kinks. The next 2 albums, which were the last 2 on RCA in the 1970s, and go all in on theatrics, all concise, all just focused in a way. And this was my favorite then. This is a record that I absolutely fell in love with when it came out. And I know people, again, a lot of the Kinks people who are into the rock and roll Kinks, or they have a lot of different compartments or a lot of different sections of their history, but this is soap opera. And this is, again, about the star maker who wants to find out what the ordinary people are like. And he finds the most mundane person that he could find in suburbia, and he finds Norman. Norman, see where I'm going here? Norman and the Star Makers feature Norman and the Star Maker. He trades places. I mean, I want to see this movie. I want to see this. But this, song for song, this is one of the great 70s Kinks albums. And I ain't lying here. Now, again, he goes into his rock and roll fantasy ideas and theatrics, and he starts with Everybody's a Star, just right out of the box. Ordinary People, a beautiful, beautiful song. Rush Hour Blues, 9 to 5. When Work Is Over, ends side one with Have Another Drink, which harks back very much like something that would be on Everybody's in Showbiz. Beautiful song, great songwriting. We obviously have all the lyrics here to the theatrics. June Ritchie is Norman's wife. Underneath the Neon Sign, holiday romance. If you ever seen Ray's writing in the 1990s in Absolute Beginners, Quiet Life, that song is that very kind of vaudevillian theatrical piece that's in Julian Temple's motion picture of Absolute Beginners, and he is in that film, and he's fabulous in that film. But on here, of course, probably the most upbeat, maybe gimmicky song is called Ducks on the Wall. Great rocker, literally starts out with Ducks on the Wall. Funny song. My favorite song on here is a back and forth ballad that opens up with Norman's wife. You Make It All Worthwhile, and Ray sings back to her this beautiful song. She comes in on the chorus. It's a stunning recording. You Make It All Worthwhile, and you can't stop the music. Facing the Crowd, of course. Where does he get that name, Theatrics, if you know that film, Facing the Crowd? But I think this is a A+ album. Again, it needs. Do we need to revisit it? Do you need to revisit it? It might not be your thing if all you're into is dun 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 dun, or even Waterloo Sunset. But Waterloo Sunset would fit right in with this record. Great songwriting. It got lost along the way. And finally, this I think has been voted in some polls as possibly one of the worst album covers of the 70s. This is, the illustrator on here is Mickey Finn. If you don't know Mickey Finn's work, if you ever saw Money for Nothing, that Dire Straits MTV video with the animation, I believe he's the same animator, same illustrator who did that. This, again, harks back to a lot of 50s rock and roll, another kind of, prep school or, English boys' school overview by Ray Davis here. And this has amazing songs. This song cycle is rock and roll, or are there kind of storytelling ballads with School Days. Jack the Idiot done so, I think with Dave doing most of the vocals on that. It's a great rock and roll. It's great retro rock and roll. If you're a 50s, early 60s rock and roll fan, you'll like half the cuts on this record. Education, The First Time We Fall in Love. I'm in Disgrace. What a great rocker. And I think Dave gets little respect for his great guitar riffs. Of course, going back to da-dun, 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 Dave's guitar playing, what a great lead guitarist, what a great guitarist. And his higher vocals that he harmonizes with his brother. To me, there's nothing like, it's not that sweet vocals like the Everly Brothers, you get from the Everly Brothers, but that brotherly vocal, there's nothing like brotherly vocals as far as I'm concerned. And they just have a way, and it's really wonderful. So I'm in Disgrace. No More Looking Back, I think I mentioned on the other day, it has that almost like Santana-like guitar lead, which is just stunning on this record. So Schoolboy's In Disgrace, the disgrace of the theatrical Kinks. This stuff is to me underrated records. I think most of these records aren't very expensive. They're not like the early Reprise records or even some other periods of the Kinks. I love the Kinks. 60 years, happy birthday, all you Kinksters out there. And thanks for watching. And, this stuff's amazing. I have been revisiting these records in the past week, and I'm not disappointed 50 years later. So, 50 years later, this album, 50 years. Mazzy loves you. See you next time.